pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. People just remain for 1 minute of silence for Mr. Leeds.
Mr. Curry Freeze too.
Who's that?
Guy going Curry Freeze passed away.
Oh, really?
He was 64. Because I lived in Rotterdam and that was our ice cream store when I was
What was his
first
name?
was Bob. His first name was Bob. I always
Okay.
used to call him Bob Freeze, but that's not.
First on our agenda is discussion of 30-day notice requirement for Wolf Hollow Brewing Company. Just so folks, so this allows them to go to the state liquor authority. This does not mean that we're in agreement with the design of the building or any of those questions. Things such as distance from the schools and all that is taken care of by the liquor authority. I called them and asked them like those kind of questions. So they had asked if we could push this a little quicker so that they can get moving.
You called who and asked?
Well, I asked the liquor authority about, like, do you check location relevant to other places that are selling alcohol into other schools and places that you're not supposed to be close to, and they said they do check all that. They said in this case, Wolf Hollow already reached out to them and asked them a bunch of questions. So
SLA is one of the most stringent of regulatory agencies, and you do not get a pass from them for anything.
So anything that has to do with the actual design will be at the planning board.
Sure.
It's straight law.
And
Go ahead.
is there an active application for the liquor store in the old
I don't know.
laundromat?
I don't know.
Maria? You haven't received an application for that?
No.
And there's a posting in the doorway. This is under liquor authority.
Didn't receive any.
We never got one, so they must not be.
Well, I need to be notified.
Right.
whether-
So they must not have done it the right way, or it's not.
Just to separate, I don't think that old laundromat is Wolf Hollow, so.
I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying it's a different thing, so that's the fourth place in that, one, two, the beverage center, if the liquor store is actually a liquor store, then the Dollar General is all places that sell alcohol. 500 feet to Lincoln behind it and right across the street to the high school.
I don't have any concerns about that. I can make a motion to waive the 30-day requirement. If we need to have more discussion, we can do it during that.
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion. Any more concerns?
I don't have any concerns other than I do support this. I think, one of the issues that this helps solve is, we have a great hotel that is always at full, it's always full. There's rarely any vacancy. And, this adds right attached near a hotel, additional food option. I also, looking at the application, it does indicate that there is going to be, a patio. And I think one of the things I constantly hear from village residents is that there's really no outdoor dining options. To see that, there does seem to be a food component incorporated in with this, will also mean JT's for breakfast and lunch for visitors and guests, attending the hotel, and then, a place for dinner, as well as, joyful libations. I live right down the street. And I don't really have any concern about parking because of the hours that this will be open will be at times when JT's is closed. So I think this is a great addition to the village. I've wanted a brewery in the village for quite some time. And we also have the infrastructure Wolf Hollow needs to be able to brew with having access to water, access to municipal sewer. So this also, helps us, provide the capacity that they need to be successful.
Mayor, I don't have any objection to waiving the 30-day notice. Forward on.
Agreed, no further comment. Win-win.
Sure.
I'm overruled. So I think there should be some alignment with the Office of Cannabis Management rules that have been talked about, because there was alignment and guidance for them on the way in, like the Office of Cannabis Management looked to liquor licensing and authority to do some of that. I think there should be some alignment to it. It's a unique scenario for the location. I'm not against all of the things you guys talked about, but that location, albeit limited of the amount of them in the village. It's just I just think there's more that could be discussed about it, so. And you align it to like another, like a cannabis company that comes into town, then you're gonna want, what if they said you want to fast track their 30-day notice? Or you aligned it for something else, it's like it's trying to be, have parity and, similarities across all of the applications that come in, not just the ones that seem their fits, so.
My thoughts with it are similar to folks. I do hear what George is saying with this, but I do think some of the concerns about the location and how it's going to be perceived, can come out in the planning board process, when they submit their application, make sure that.
Yeah, but they don't have any authority to deny it.
We just have to make sure, Brian and I talked about the infrastructure,
Right.
like making sure what's being discharged into the.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll.
And what do you think about it?
I don't even know what it is, honestly.
It's putting a,
Full Follow Brewing is moving production to the place where Fastenal is. Initially, it'll be production. Long term, it'll be a brew pub type of place to eat with an outdoor patio, nice little social place to go. Kind of like the place they have out there, which is a really nice place to go. I like the family feel about it. I like the support that they do. I just think it's a little close proximity to schools.
Yeah, I'm not opposed. I mean, I don't see like, typically speaking, like bodegas and gas stations are where kids are eating alcohol, not breweries. So I don't have any concern of that being a close proximity to the school. And they're typically busier during hours where school is closed.
Yeah.
Also, it'd be so obvious if a kid went into that place unaccompanied. It's not like the Citgo where kids are rolling in and out of there all the time. I mean, if a kid from school rolled into the brewery, I don't know. Anyway,
yeah, this is not replacing their music haven down there. They might put in a guitar player in, but they're, still gonna keep that location for their parties and their big events.
yeah, that'd be a shame.
I think for me, what, gives me kind of, I guess you could say, comfort in allowing for this waiver, this 30-day waiver. We're not talking about a business that is unknown to the community. We're talking about a responsible brewery owner, that has been operating in the town of Glenville for over 10 years, with very little, if any, issues. And, that's, I do feel comfortable granting this waiver because they are a known business that has been a good neighbor and played by the rules and been a good asset.
The last thing I'll say about this is this is just allowing them to fast track the process. As somebody who deals with SLA on a regular basis, they will not issue a license if they don't have their ducks in a row. And SLA is one of the only, not one of the only, the SLA as a regulatory body is one that they have teeth. If they need you to do something or they need you to change it, you're gonna do it, because they're either not going to issue their license or they'll pull it. And so for me, like we're just allowing them to get a head start on the same process they're gonna have to undergo. There's not any lessening in any of the regulations that they're gonna be beholden to. So to me, that, to your point, Trustee Cook, that allays a lot of my concern, is I know what they're facing in terms of hurdles to get their license and to keep their license. And SLA will look at their history also at, with their other license, as they factor that in. So their role in the community, and I have not heard of any major issues or anything happening at their other location. They run a pretty tight ship, so.
And I will say with reference to concerns with aligning things to the Office of Cannabis Management, I don't necessarily have the same kind of trust in the Office of Cannabis Management. It's having those same kind of teeth and regulatory things. The rollout of, MRTA and recreational marijuana has been a disaster, right? Especially for a lot of, cannabis dispensaries. So, if you're asking, if we were to be asking for a fast track for cannabis, I'd say just because of OCM is not the same as SLA.
I agree.
That's where I just kind of.
All I was saying is there was guidance brought from SLA and ATF to design the Office of Cannabis Management outlines and guidance. And yes, they've kind of failed a couple of times, as we all know, in the city of Schenectady as well, by, giving a license where they probably shouldn't have done it due to, location to, schools or churches. So I just, I bring that up as kind of a future look at as things evolve. That evolved from the SLA and the ATF. So it was worth in more discussion, and now it's been discussed. So
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Abstain? So, thank you. Overnight parking.
Dun, dun, dun.
Well,
I'm here for moral support.
So, let me just background it a little. There's been a number of complaints by people about on-street parking, misusing. Let me rephrase that.
I got a whole speech prepared, so.
Yeah.
Why don't you go, but I just want to know why we're doing this.
All right, so good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today about overnight parking in the Village of Scotia. As it currently stands, overnight parking is prohibited between the hours of 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. While this prohibition is written in our village code, overlooks or temporary exceptions have been granted by the police department through various methods over the years. I'll give you a quick timeline of how the overlooks have evolved in my time here. When I began in 2007, residents would call Glenville Dispatch Center to request a parking overlay, which request the loose term, they're just giving a plate, address, name and contact number in case something comes up. When the dispatch responsibilities transferred to the UCC, the process shifted from calling a voicemail box at the Scotia Police Department. And every night an officer would listen to 20 messages or more and write down a list. So when I became chief, and with the input of our midnight officers, Sean's shift specifically, with the technical know-how, we implemented an online parking overlook request. This system automatically emails the department every night with a compiled list, streamlining the process significantly and improving efficiency. I also talked to the sergeant, who was my sergeant when I started on midnights in 2007. He started in 1990 and moved to Scotia in 1974. He said that overlooks existed his entire career and the entire time he lived in Scotia. That 1974, his mom was issued a ticket, and she went and spoke with the police department, and they pulled it back. So now, while the village handbook states that overlooks are for emergencies only and limited to 3 days, in practice, this policy has not been enforced. Neither during my time here nor well before I joined, and in fact, no explanation has been required to request an overlay. Some residents who are very law abiding and will be having a driveway sealed or construction will call and ask for an exemption for longer than 3 days. And like if officers generally see someone's driveway sealed or paved, we just on our own don't write the ticket. So the real issue lies deeper than just the procedure. Many of the buildings in our village are older, built in eras like the 1940s when off-street parking wasn't a major consideration. A family back then might have had one vehicle, whereas today a similar household might have 3 or 4 vehicles. Because of that, a complete and absolute prohibition of overnight parking creates real hardship for some residents. And yet we must acknowledge why the restriction exists in the first place. The reasons for prohibiting overnight parking include enabling street maintenance, including snow removal and cleaning, preventing overnight habitation, people living in their vehicles, discouraging long-term storage of inoperable or broken down vehicles, helping police more easily identify stolen or abandoned vehicles, and ultimately protecting our residents and their property. We know when a vehicle is out of place, we check on it. That said, we need to recognize reality. Every night, at least 25 vehicles appear on our overnight or overnight. I have a list attached from last night. I tried counting in my home today, there's 37 to 38 vehicles on there.
Not including the what?
Yeah.
Oh, like if you were driving by and you're like, these people,
We still take them by phone. I have to.
got it, thank you.
So there's no way to track each of these people, how many times they do it, like another column we could put in this table that says, this is time
Like
number
instances?
22 for the month.
That's an extra step.
It's the same people every day, and it's been that way for the 18 years I've been here.
So they just call every day?
There's people that call every day, and they might take a day off in between if they're doing the 3-day rule or rotating their parents' car into the street.
And then
for
do the other
day
one?
and Go back. So by our practice, someone who parks in the street technically isn't allowed 1 day out of 7 if we were paying attention. But when someone does leave the message, we never call them back and say, this is more than 3 days in a row. When
Right.
at 3 in the morning when they're getting less than
Right. And again, because we have nothing that says these are the reasons why,
Yeah.
it's just been covered. Can I ask another clarifying question?
Yeah.
For the frequent flyers, you know those houses, right? You guys drive past them all the time. Are people doing it in any way because it's more convenient, because they don't want to deal with a car shuffle in their driveway, like i.e. there's room, it's a straight driveway, and they don't want to pack 3 vehicles in because it means someone has to get out so someone else can get out. Like, are they doing it for convenience, or are they doing it because there's literally no room in the driveway?
In my experience.
Okay.
I worked with Brady on overnights. He was my sergeant. We actually went around with the homes to inquire about why some people, went beyond the 3 days. There was one house in particular that literally does not have driveway at all. It's a very small house where there's actually no place to park whatsoever. It's one of the first houses on the 200 block of the street. And then there were many others where the kids started to grow up. Now they have 3 or 4 vehicles in the driveway. Not about the shelters. No place.
So then, Bruce, they don't have any spots in the alley?
There's one house that small one, that one tiny.
Oh, I know you were talking about the
Yeah.
little, yeah, right. Got it. The other side.
Well, that property is attached to the property on the corner. It's all one property. They were low rent.
Oh, okay.
I know my mother lived in that house for a while.
Okay.
So the parking for that spot is the driveway next to the white spot on the White House on Fifth Street.
Okay, well,
There is a parking lot or parking
for that.
for that property.
Yes.
I can. keep
Sorry,
going.
so could we, yeah, it's probably good.
So there's a lot to talk about with this. So the volume indicates a sustained need for overnight parking exceptions and highlights the disconnect between current code and real life practice. It tells us that change is needed, either in enforcement policy or both. So what are our options? This one which will segment the next thing about the e-parking tickets, but I discovered this when I met with a vendor and they told me about the village of Pelham, who has hardship overnight parking exemptions, and it's a permit. And then I was looking at those, and you have Austenings, because I like theirs better. But one possibility to implement a more formal system for hardship exemptions is a HOPE permit, hardship overlook parking exemption. This would formalize the process, set clear expectations, and ensure fairness. We can look to Austining, New York as a reference point. They have a structured program which we can adapt to meet our needs while making sure changes remain efficient for officers to enforce. I'll just go over Austining briefly, like you have the packet in front of you. But if you want a hardship overnight exemption, you mail in a check for $85 and you get a 30-day temporary permit. During that 30 days, the police department and building inspector and court would review your application to make sure you are in the parameters. So one of them is you can't have any unpaid parking tickets. So that would be checking with the court. And other exceptions are, like, as you said, the building inspector would say, like, okay, there really is enough spots in the driveway. It's not just convenience. So there's no parking available. A driveway parking exists, but there's, due to the number of vehicles, there's no room to park. You're being handicapped. You have a company vehicle and have a letter from the company in writing saying that the vehicle will be inaccessible. Or a temporary occupant, when there's parking out available, like a student. Or police, fire, EMT, nurse, doctor. And after it's reviewed, the police department would then issue a full permit for the vehicle, and that would allow them to park in the road. So not only are they paying for that permit, but there's parameters, including like the no parking or not having outstanding tickets, they would have to do. So that's my suggestion. Other options we could consider are allowing overnight parking year round, besides seasonal restrictions for snow emergencies. Implementing odd even parking, rotating based on the date, which balances access and maintenance needs, or develop a tier system. And with that, like Pelham too, so they have, besides a HOPE permit, they have a construction permit, which is free. They have, you're allowed, if you had a friend over and they drank too much, 3 days a month, someone could park. And with those applications, like they would keep track of that. So if you were over 3 days, it would reject the application on the parking platform from the company. So key considerations are enforcement efficiency. Any new system must be simple and enforceable for officers on patrol. Fairness and transparency. The goals should be clear, applied consistently, easily accessible to residents, and balancing needs. We must protect the integrity of Village Street while acknowledging evolving residential parking realities. In conclusion, it's time for us to revisit this long-standing policy. Our goal should be to balance the needs of residents with the operational needs of the village, while ensuring the system is transparent, enforceable, and fair. And my original plan was to discuss the options at a traffic safety committee meeting prior to presenting it to the board, but due to the current discussion, I presented it to me. And thank you for your time. If you have any questions or feedback, that's why I brought me.
Oh, you're gonna have questions, so we'll start at the right and work with my right.
So I had very little questions because, you know, your presentation was really thorough. I do agree that right now our overlook system is a little bit like the wild, wild west. In fact, we actually don't have overlooks for that code. That's problematic. I also agree with specifying what cases are allowable for overlooks. And in certain cases, with regards to ADA compliance, emergency vehicles and whatnot, I am supportive of some sort of permit process in very limited cases. I am completely and totally opposed to traditional hardship. We have a village code law for a reason, where all dwellings, whether single or multifamily or business, are required to have a driveway and provide ample parking. Just briefly looking at what you provided in terms of where the overlooks are coming from. a significant amount of this issue is actually coming from multifamily, multi-dwelling units. Which means, could be one of two things. The property owners are not actually providing in the lease a restriction on the number of cars that the occupants are allowed to have. And therefore not having ample parking. But that is not for the village to enforce, that is for the property owner to enforce with their tenants. I've lived in an apartment nearly my entire life, with the exception of purchasing a home in 2021. And I always had a limit to the number of cars that I could park in my driveway to 2. So that is something don't think it's in the village's best interest to allow for hardship overlooks with regards to that. The reason why is the majority of these properties that are in and around where these overlooks are occurring are in former single-family homes converted into now 2, 3, or 4 units. By creating a hardship where insufficient parking is actually an overlook, where an overlook could be granted in this year, we're actually now encouraging the further conversion of multifamily units to be 3 or more. I used to live in a community that did not have overnight parking restrictions. And with the number of people that ended up parking on the street because of the issues of multifamily dwellings, it created issues where it was harder for the garbage to be removed on garbage day, because you're increasing the number of cars on the street at 6 a.m. when public trash is given up. It was harder for trash collectors also to pick up bulk items, because now you had cars parked where sofas were put out on the curb. I think it's setting a precedent that actually overrides our village code. And our village code with regards to requiring driveways and proper parking was done not irresponsibly, but responsibly through urban planning. We are a high density community. So I will say I will support, the creation of a less Wild West overlook routine. So that our police force can focus their time and effort on, strategically policing the streets and dealing with bigger issues. But I'm not in support of changing and allowing for hardship based upon room in a driveway. To me, that is a planning board issue, and the property owner should be given very clear directive on how to solve that for their tenants.
Okay, I have a lot to say on this subject, and I'm not going to get into everything this evening, this will be here. But, I've lived here almost my entire life. 2 miles of these villages and overnight parking, personally, but also from the residents in my vicinity in the village where I reside, do not want overnight parking. I struggle with this because I see vehicles on property that they shouldn't even be there. And, I have called even to find out, why do we have a vehicle on a front lawn or a piece of a parking lot? And that vehicle owner should not even be on that property.
We can't enforce our
Just let me
private
finish.
property.
I know, but there shouldn't be any vehicles on front lawns. Okay,
You wrote a
that's,
ticket to the one next door, but the one property, the commercial
it's
property.
been going on for a long time. Okay. One time I had a car in front of my house for 3 days. No ticket. I didn't say anything. This was years ago. This was before you became chief. Okay. I do think it lessens our quality of life. Also, the multifamily, and this is a related subject, the multifamily housing, are they paying single family taxes? Are they zoned multifamily? Are they paying the proper taxes? That's very interesting question. I think that should be addressed. I don't think that's accurate. I think they're zoned single family. If a property is going to be leased and the homeowner knows he has X amount of space and he's changing it and converting, is he doing everything in the proper protocol that he should be? Is he forewarning his residents, well, these are your parking spots, you go into Schenectady, they're outlined as to what they have when they're getting, whether it's, for instance, over at Frog Alley, that's not on-street parking. You know, when you get an apartment, how many parking spots you have. I don't think that's going on here in the Village of Scotia. I think there's a safety issue. I think there's a quality of life issue. Icing also has a very, very large population, almost 27,000 compared to 7,000 or so that Village of Scotia has. This is a bedroom community. It is changing. And I see multifamily homes growing here. But I don't think it's responsibility, and I do agree with trustee, but I don't think it's the responsibility of this board to figure out that problem. That homeowner knows how many apartments he has. That homeowner knows his tax consequences, whether it's single or multi. That homeowner knows how many parking spots are allowed, and it doesn't include front grass. It doesn't include the street where there's vehicles there for days. It doesn't include an overlook over and over and over without due diligence being done by the police department. Well, why are they having an overlook? Is it just something that we're accustomed to now? I don't think the Village of Scotia should accept that. So, like I said, I have a lot to this. I don't think Ossining is a true example and a good comparison to the Village of Scotia, but I'm not in favor of overnight parking. I'm a hard no, I'll always be a hard no, and, that's all I have to say tonight.
Trustee Brown.
I mean, we could focus on what Scotia used to be, we could focus on what Scotia is, which is that we have converted housing and we have folks who move here for a various number of reasons. And I guess like, I don't want to see a world where a young family has to move out of the village because they have 2 kids that are learning how to drive and then there's 2 extra cars that they have to manage in a driveway that only has room for 2 of them, right? Like for me, like that just doesn't make any sense based on who we are and who we want to be and who we want to live here. So I mean, I think this works in other places. As somebody who lived in numerous apartments with no parking in cities and had to deal with alternate side of the street parking every day where you're running out of your house at dark AM trying to move your car to the other side of the street or whatever, like this is something that people, to Trustee Cook and Trustee Gray's point, like, yes, there's a part of it that like, when you get a place here, you should know, here's where I can park, here's where I can't park, the landlord's up. Honestly, the process that you've laid out here, if we follow that, I think will raise many of those issues because we are not going to do what Trustee Gray is afraid of us doing, which is just to issue them for anybody who calls, or this actually formalizes the process and makes people justify why they need this and justify it with due diligence by our police department, codes, planning, whoever else. So for me, if someone is putting on their application that their landlord is telling them they can't park in their spot, that raises larger issues for us that we can then follow up on with those tenants, to Trustee Cook's point, right? Like that's an issue. So for me, I think you've done a great job in laying out why this is a problem and what a pathway is toward a solution. I think I am definitely down for giving it a shot with the parameters that we've set out. Maybe we try it for a year or 6 months or something. Obviously, if it's catastrophic and it becomes a problem right away, we can nix it. So I think for me, alternate side of the street parking needs to be managed with this a little bit. So like, you all know where I live. I go down 5th to drop my kid off at school every morning, and 5th in the morning and the afternoon is a war zone because you've got cars parked on both sides of the street and people are trying to come both ways. So for me, how we can try to not recreate that or exacerbate that in some way is up for you all to determine in terms of structuring the process and in terms of enforcement. For me, none of this happens without the enforcement. I appreciate you saying that this actually gives you something you can enforce. Where right now, there's this weird gray area where some people call, some people are doing this. So I am all for giving it a shot as long as those other concerns I think are addressed. And you don't want to be dealing with accidents because there's cars in the street where they shouldn't be and people are speeding by. So like, for me, like, I know you're not going to set up a situation where you're creating problems for yourself. So I trust in your diligence around this to try to implement it, but something needs to change. I agree we need to do it. I think this is one of those other opportunities for us to maybe get in line with like what's the right thing to do versus like what's always been done for 1,000 years, or what, like this deals with this in a very pragmatic way. So thank you for that.
What type of municipality is Ossining? Is it the city of Ossining?
It's a village.
It's a village of
There's
Ossining?
a village of Pelham too. I like Ossining a little better, but you're welcome to read the village of Pelham.
No, I
That's a
just-
smaller population, I think, or similar to our size.
Yeah, I mean, it's just another point to talk about cities and how they interact with having people parking and populations that are growing and businesses that are expanding and having multiple parking places. One thing I haven't heard yet, what's the actual code that talks about overnight parking?
So it's prohibited.
No, what's the code number? Because I look at 250-55 and that speaks to what Trustee Gray's 250-55C speaks exactly to what Trustee Gray, no parking in front yards or with the exception of driveways shall be permitted in any residential zoning district. So I mean, there's a law that's not being enforced right now that could be enforced.
I only know of one instance of someone parking on the front lawn, which was addressed.
Yeah.
There's another property that's a commercial property that someone parks would be in the front lawn, except for it's a commercial property, so I can't enforce that.
Yep, there's another one, there's no parking of commercial vehicles over the weight limit of 1 ton. There's one right on Bruce Street that has multiple vehicles over 1 ton that are parked, and they took down our electric, you get to the electric line that feeds the utility lights in the back alley, so.
Oh, is that what happened?
So, I just, do you know what the code is? Code number? I like this oversight. I like looking at new things. I like the fact that times change and people are different. And to Trustee Gray's point, that we don't want families that are just trying to have a nice existence to be forced out, but we do have ordinances that are not being enforced now. So I think we should start with identifying what they are, because if we're going to start changing or adding ordinances, I think we really should start there. I mean, there's almost 40 people on this list just from one day.
Yeah.
And it's over and over and over again for no reason.
Before we come back around, I did
That's
forget,
been that way for the 8.5 years.
having to apply will self-select most of these people out of this.
Correct. But I mean, I think we need to have a very good understanding and visibility on the existing ordinance. And then we can guide these people how to.
If they had to apply.
You know, we talk about like community becoming and serving our community for who we are today, not for what we were, not what we were in the future. You know, I agree with that, but that's a planning issue, right? So if we're experiencing an issue of parking overloads because of inadequate parking, then we should have an ordinance that prohibits converting a 2-family home into a 4-unit home.
Bingo, but we're not, we don't know what they are now.
Correct, so
It's not zoned for that, then they're doing it.
then what they've done is they've just, like we've all done with a lot of planning in the village, which is why we have multi-family dwellings and single-family zoning, they just get a zoning variance. We've been enforcing and planning through zoning variance in many situations. That's
We haven't
why
issued
you
one of
have-
those, just FYI, we haven't issued one of those in years.
So.
Never
so
on my
explain-
time in there.
explain then, you know, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth Street, which are all zoned single-family residences, before you have large pockets of multifamily.
So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that we can look at leading up to the right decision for this. And it's, you know, guiding people on what the code is and being good, you know, good leaders, I think is a good way to start. I would never do this. I mean, I have a lot of parking. And I created a little place to park some other things that I wanted to park, you know, the vehicles on. So it's a different, but if you do get to some place like, you know, who has that limited property or doesn't want to park where they're supposed to park, then, I mean, where are we gonna do that?
You don't want me to show you the code. Where it says
I
one
do
vote.
excuse myself, and I just want to say
Front yard.
you buy a home, you rent a home, understanding there's restrictions. I bought a home with a shared driveway. I know that I can only fit 3 cars on my section of the driveway. My neighbor knows she can only fit 3 cars in her driveway. So we make it work. That is a limitation that we have when you buy property in Scotia. Now, there has been a 15% increase in cars per household. So that's where we need to actually go back to our planning and actually discourage certain development that, and that will make this even worse. But if you are living in an apartment with 6 units and your landlord says you only have 2 spots, you only have 2 spots. I think that's a realistic expectation to have.
Another topic for the strategic plan.
Correct, and all this does is actually, want to talk about it from a tenant perspective. All this does is shift the responsibility away from the property owner and put another fee of $85 per vehicle onto a tenant.
All right, but can we just not kid ourselves here? Like, you're not gonna get landlords to do anything about it. I mean, like, we have a situation where like, we can complain about what caused this all we want and say it's bad landlords. I say it all the time about our businesses, right? A lot of it has to do with bad landlords, right? But like, we're dealing with like a scenario where like, you're hearing from the police department, this is creating a challenge, right? The fact that we also have to address our planning is not the reason to not do this, which solves a bunch of problems that we're having right now. I'm just saying in general, like, I think like, we have to be focused on the fact that like, there's a problem that needs to get fixed. If we end up in an abyss of, well, we have to change the code. Well, we got to do a planning thing. Well, we got to do a strategic plan. It's like, we have a problem in front of us that we're being presented with a workable solution for. Like, I don't see why we wouldn't try it.
We can make some parameters, we don't have to follow these parameters, we can come up with, if you were like, I don't like commercial vehicles being able to park in the road, then.
Boom, pull it out.
We can set it to our own terms, there's, Kellingham and Ossining are 2 of many jurisdictions that have these. We
Yes.
can look at multiple codes that come up, what's best for Scotia.
Yeah.
But what I'm looking to do is to come up with a plan that fits Scotia. It does have to mirror Ossining, but I think we do need to do a hardship overnight exemption because nothing's changed in 18 and a half years. There's more vehicles being parked now, but this has always been allowed.
Yes.
Well, we don't know why these people keep parking.
But we've never done that.
We've never
But
done
it's,
it.
but it's, the code is the code, it's 240-18, trustee Solo truck.
Oh, super.
I think there needs to be an inquiry to, you know, why these are constantly overlooked, right? There hasn't been any analysis, just call it in, that is not acceptable.
Yes.
That's why I want to do the hardship overnight
No,
exemption.
I don't even think don't even get there. How do you know that these are not single family homes and you have 3 or 4 people perhaps that are living there? And it's
So-
not, you buy a home, it's zoned single family, and then before you know it, you have 4 apartments next door and you have a bunch of cars. I didn't buy my home because there were 4 apartments next door. It was all zoned single family. I think there has to be an analysis, is this legitimate? Are these legitimate hardship, potential hardship applications? We've just given a list and we are assuming that they're acceptable. I think people think, oh, I can get away with it, nobody's gonna enforce the code.
So just let me,
What I'm
this
looking to
list
do.
was not a list of who should be getting a hardship.
Right.
That's an example
This
of
was just
last
an
night.
example of last.
I was off today.
And frankly, this is missing 4 on my street that park there every night.
The bottom line is, if we did something like this, that would either not happen
They get a ticket.
or they get a ticket. Like, so it's like, it's sort of like we're saying like, this is a problem. We're like, yeah, it is a problem. We're trying to present the solution to exactly that problem, which is that there's a list of 30-something people plus however many.
Okay, so let me
That's
see.
part of the application process. That's
Let me-
what they just laid out for us. We're gonna get you one.
We're not gonna make this decision tonight anyways. You just were presented the information. And you do have to read it, because unless people are a speed reader,
These are really good restrictions
but
that we laid out.
these are conversations to have. And people should have a list of their pros and their cons and their mandatory requirements if we did anything. I fully do agree, we need to check these places against whether they're single-family residents or they're in multifamily residents that aren't even legally multifamily residents, not
Yeah,
necessarily.
Did the landowner, the property owner say, yeah, just send an email to
Right,
call the police?
Can I ask a practical step that might help us with decisions, just super quick, just for our consideration? How much of an exercise would it be for you to just take that list from any random night? And just based on what you know from your eyes and your experience, what might be the reason for those exemptions? Right, like, just based on, you said, you know the cars, you know the neighborhoods, you know the houses, you know all this stuff, right? Like, I guess like my question would be, how many of these are you guys literally saying like, yeah, there's no room in the driveway for that? Like, or I guess like, and I'm not asking for now, but,
Some of them.
right, but just some data,
Bring over the drinks as much and park their car.
which I think is very responsible and a good reason to do it.
Yeah, if they called you, if they called you the next day, yeah, my friend was drunk last night, let him park there, we didn't call him, sorry. That's an okay for me, you know what I mean? That's a public safety issue and it's in the spirit of the challenges that we're providing, but.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but like, I just, like
So-
data.
yeah, we're gonna need some data. Trustee Ray brought up some points about data that I think are important. You know, this came about for a lot of reasons. One was I called the chief one weekend because this van by me has been parking in the street forever. Got a ticket for being too close to the fire hydrant, but it's always there even with cones outside. And it just, to me, it's an abuse of the code. We do have to look at our code as to parking in the front yard, because right now, if you have a cutout, that space behind that cutout is considered a driveway. And so, you know, do we want that? Do we want to make sure that they haven't paid if they're gonna park there? Those are things that we definitely
In
have
front of
to,
the house.
yeah. Not
Curb cut.
directly in front,
Curb cut.
right to the side,
There's a curb cut right into the front porch of that
Right.
little red house.
yeah. So those are things we should definitely be looking at. I do want though, Chief, you talk a little bit about, and maybe tonight's not tonight, the parking, the ticketing software that you've looked at and how that could benefit us, and whether we should be using an electronic ticketing system as opposed to a paper system. The one thing with the electronic system, I believe, regardless of whichever direction we go here, is it would tell you if this is a frequent flyer, because you're gonna type the license plate in, it's gonna show this guy's been there for 5 straight nights or whatever.
Well, that's what the LPRs in the car do too.
No, they don't.
They don't?
They just.
Not that. They don't record, they'll tell you whether,
No, I mean, you can reference the record of that license plate.
You can enter things in the vehicle LPRs. I transitioned away from vehicle LPRs though, to fixed LPRs.
Yep.
So we only have, I think, 1 or 2 that are even active right now.
Oh, okay.
so
Thought we still had those.
That's what he's saying.
I do want you, Chief, and probably not tonight. to talk about the options we have for a better way of managing parking.
I can do just like a brief thing, like you can review the paperwork that I gave you all. That's one of the companies, the T2 system. That I met with two different companies, Passport, which is using Schenectady, and then the T2 system, which they presented at NICOM, and they were given to me by Schenectady. And then he was actually going to Manans, this is before this link came up, but he went to Manans, presented to the village of Manans. And I went to Manans and saw his presentation as well. So all the paperwork there, but some of the advantages of my notes here. One on. Comes in as a one-piece handheld machine.
Really push for it. You said that's a paper.
Guys,
So through this company, there's a one-piece handheld machine. You scan the registration of the vehicle. It comes up with all the information of the vehicle. Let's say, 1999 Honda Accord black. The date and time are automatically implemented from that, geolocated. You also take a picture of the vehicle. So like right now, Sean writes a parking ticket, and a year from now, the person wants a trial. He's not gonna remember any details of that. Now on this, with this application, you take a picture of it or multiple pictures, and that's saved on the website. The person can see it. You actually print it up on the ticket. This is an example of one of the tickets. You can see.
Oh, yeah.
You can pass that down.
I got one in my car from
I was just gonna say,
from like
oh, what's this?
So it's a different company than Schenectady.
from Westchester.
There's virtual permits, so if the person had a hardship permit parking exemption, you scan the registration, it would say this vehicle has a permit, are you sure you want to issue? And then if you're like, yes, if you're a fire hydrant, then you just say yes and go through with it. There's collections associated with this. They own a collection company, so people that aren't paying, they submit collections themselves. There's also things that you can do, like you have to mail someone a letter before you scofflaw it, and then they can also go that route, but collections. If we were to go with this company, they would take your last 3 years of unpaid parking tickets, as long as you have it in a digital format, and go to they would put it to their collection agency, which would help pay for it as well. And then it streamlines the paying process online instead of just people going to the court. They can pay right online. If someone wants to plead not guilty, you can have an officer review it before it goes to court and say, like, you're denied, this is because these are reasons. I looked at the vehicle pictures. And then if they actually want a trial, so there'll be less people going to trial for the parking tickets. It makes it easier to write it and get pictures stored. So
This one's interesting. They have a residential parking permit, but they're parked in a fire lane, but there isn't anything in the picture that shows a fire lane.
yeah, so that is just that was done in the office in the police station of Manans with the guy's vehicle. So.
Yeah. But that's a great tool. And,
If we ever went to paid parking in the future, you could use this for paid parking moving forward.
And you'd be able to look for some grants for this as well. Potentially.
If a grant opened up, yes, I think you could apply like LE Tech grant to it. But I also think we could, if they're gonna take the last 3 years of unpaid fines, then we could say, okay, their collection rate through the company is 45% on collections for unpaid parking tickets. So if we figured out what the last 3 years of unpaid parking tickets are, and then 45% of that, we could see what tentatively could be covered this extent.
And this says industry standard is 22%. We don't know what our
And we're not collecting anything. They're not going to collect. There are a lot of tickets that are unpaid right now.
Do they offer, like, if we have that in an electronic format or we could get it, do they do an estimate like upfront? Like, will they say, okay, we've seen your 3 years of thing and basically at at our 45% collection rate, like, here's what that looks like, or what, I mean, like, do they,
With economy, that's hard to
sure,
tell. They will tell you like what the cost for them is to collect it. And they recommend adding that cost on to the fine so that we get the full amount that we're owed and like the additional,
and then they get their
Whatever.
collection fee.
20%
Got it.
or whatever the collection fee is, given to them so we get our full amount.
Got it.
And then through this company, you do get the full amount. If the parking fee is $25, you get the $25. And there's a $4
Yeah, they,
convenience fee
right.
that they charge or whatever.
right. Okay, I mean,
It would make it a lot easier for the officers to write tickets. You know, there's a quote in there as to what it would cost for a 3-year plan. Some of it's hardware, some of it's training,
yeah,
some of it's the annual subscription, because that hasn't gone up in 15 years.
Can I ask an officer on the street?
Sure.
What do you think? Would it be easier to have a,
Absolutely,
than writing them out?
absolutely.
so,
Oh,
right,
yeah.
annual cost is what?
Pretty simple.
I believe it's around $7,000 a year is the annual cost.
Here it shows 2770 for services.
Oh, subscription, right, there's two, though, there's a data plan. Right, some of this is not just all upfront cost. Looks like the upfront cost, a lot of that is in equipment.
71.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty expensive.
Yeah, I mean,
So you're gonna have the Verizon LTE data plan is gonna be annual. And the subscription service is gonna be annual for the hard, and you get the hardware repair thing.
So 21 a year, basically, is what we're looking at, subscriptions, 21 a year. Then plus,
No, I think it's around 7, so it's 5,496, then 840, 840.
and there's no data storage caps. Do you see anything about that in there since?
I can ask, I'm sure I can ask the company present.
I just say that I'm likening it to the software I use every day. The more stuff you store, the more credits it costs you. You have to have a pool of credits to cover it, so it's a monetary, albeit minor.
do you own or lease their equipment?
You own their,
And do they have a like, do you have to pay for each replacement, or do they replace them at a certain kind of like
and there's
lifespan?
a warranty on them. They actually own the company themselves, so it's not like you're buying it through.
Got it.
They make the parking.
So we would be going through a formal bidding process
Sure,
anyway.
yeah.
So they're actually also like, they're on Sourcewell. So we wouldn't need to go through a formal bidding process for them.
I see, got it, you're on that list. Okay,
We may
But I
want,
did look at, I looked at 2 different companies. I think there's a lot of disparities between the companies. I'm not saying this is the absolute company, because there's probably more that do it. But if you go with the cheapest company, you might not get
oh, yeah, sure.
the best product.
So that's
So,
the part of the discovery part where we're gonna right size this for us.
Yeah,
So then you write a scope of work from that.
like I'm sure the retired chief that presented this to me would present it to anyone here that wanted to see it.
yeah, the thing that scares me is the ongoing cost of data storage. But unfortunately, that's the way life is going right now.
Just go ahead, and you've seen the equipment, like, seem pretty durable?
Yeah, very.
Awesome.
And like I said, I've spoken with 2 companies and I sent something to a 3rd company that didn't respond to me. I met with Passport and then this company, and this was by far like leaps and bounds ahead of Passport in my opinion.
Nice. Thanks, so, this is just a presentation, we'll take this up at another meeting?
Yep, that's the idea. I just wanted them to present,
Yeah, thank you,
to see it.
very thorough,
And,
I mean,
um,
seems like it would save a lot of,
yeah, I want Chief to also, I mentioned to him to present it to traffic safety as well. To just get your thoughts on it. I don't know if you've already presented it to you, the PBA. Get your thoughts on it.
Officers would much rather.
Yeah, I'm just, yeah,
It's just the expense of it, and that's figuring out, like, okay, this is how much paper tickets cost.
Right.
You know, this is the difference, what we can buy with. But if also, if you're increasing the amount of parking tickets and solving with the hardship, if we did a hardship exemption with money from that, and then we're issuing more tickets because there's specific parameters to that.
So my question with this was, we write 100 tickets. We print off 100 tickets. They step in after court and the person doesn't pay, or right off the bat, they seek the
I
money.
think when someone doesn't pay during a specified time period, then they would.
They step in,
Yeah,
do the collection.
they do the collection of it. And then there's also other ways, like you can scan these stop laws that are cards. You have to send, I think, might be certified mail, I'm not sure of the process.
That's okay. That's okay.
They suspend the registration after 3 unpaid parking tickets, then you have to pay them and unpaid, A and B unsuspended, you can't register any new car in your name. For the process of that, we haven't done that.
So those are those beeps on our LPRs when somebody
Some of
comes
them
through
are
without some,
unpaid
not
parking.
all, but yeah. Thanks, chief.
Yeah, thanks for answering the questions, appreciate it.
We'll add teeth to your collection.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
On behalf of everyone, good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, hope everything goes well and recovery is fast and
People,
Chief, anything you want to say? I know you're just sitting there. Chief is hurting as well, so.
I have my own thoughts on off-street parking. I used to live in Schenectady, so I had off-street parking, but I can just say, just as I'm a family of 6. We have 6 vehicles, and fortunately, I don't live in the village because I need a lot of parking spots. But I can see some people needing, because families are getting bigger, having more cars, and it's just not. But on the safety aspect, you can't have too many cars parked on the street.
Exactly.
Because then I can't get fire engine down the street.
Exactly.
And that has happened where we've almost scraped both sides.
But that's a 24-hour a day problem, that's not an overnight problem.
And
That's what-
I also don't think it's fair, as me as a single family homeowner who made sure my driveway got expanded to fit 5 cars in it. To have a car parked in front of my house all the time, because the people down the road don't want to do anything with their driveway, and so my whole street is filled. I'm not saying this is what it looks like, but it could. The whole street's filled with cars, and I have people coming over to park on and visit, and they gotta park a block away because of it. So there's gotta be some kind of balance.
Our guys
Go-
are issuing parking tickets.
Yeah.
I understand the exemption, I understand the debate, some that are maybe there for long, but in general, you know, from my store, and to the comments, we are issuing.
Yeah.
Abundant on parking tickets, despite,
I think one thing we can crack down quickly is this abuse of the overloads, where somebody does keep calling in over and over again because we don't have an electronic system. It's hard for us to check.
Yeah, we just have to. We have to go by what the existing ordinance
Right.
says, and then we have to say 30
In
days.
the ordinance, there's not any overload is the issue, but it's been that practice since at least 1974.
That's right.
So it's like, okay,
Yes.
we've allowed this, if we're gonna change this, then I think we need to do it in a informed way.
It is in the village handbook.
That's not the law.
Right,
Well, that's the statement, you know, we've noticed an uptick in abuse of this, you know, leniency. And we're really kind of trying to find a way to roll back to the ordinance that's in place and then use that as guidance moving forward. But 30 days from now, you're not gonna be able to do this,
there is no ordinance.
whatever parameter it is, you know what I mean? There is no overloads, but out of the good graces of the village of Scotia, we're gonna let it happen, but you can't do it every night. There has to be some structure around it. You know what I mean?
thank you, everybody. I'm going to pull us into exec for just a couple of minutes. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
It's
What for?
for personnel.
Great, is this gonna be long enough that I should run to the restroom first?
No.
Okay.
No, but I need the room.